Dad always had this quiet way of making me rethink the things I thought were solid. He never forced his opinion. He didn't lecture or argue. Instead, he would say something with just enough pause, just enough weight, that the thought would sit with me long after the conversation ended. That's exactly how it felt the evening he told me he didn't believe she was being honest with me. He didn't say it like a warning. It wasn't sharp or angry. It was calm, steady, and deeply unsettling. We were sitting together, not really talking, just letting the soft buzz of the television fill the silence. And then he said it. "She's not telling you the whole story." I didn't respond right away. It felt like someone had opened a door I didn't even know was closed. I looked at him, trying to read his face. He wasn't accusing, he wasn't even frowning. He just looked sure. That bothered me. I remember shaking my head quickly, trying to dismiss what he'd said. "You don't know her like I do," I said, my voice a little too sharp, a little too defensive. And maybe that defensiveness should have told me something right there. But I didn't want to believe him. I was in love. I was sure of her. I knew her heart. Or at least, I thought I did. She never made things complicated. That's what drew me to her in the first place. She made life feel easy. Her words were always clear, her eyes always steady. She never made me guess what she felt, never left me wondering. She said she loved me and I believed her. She told me she wanted a future together. And I saw it with her. How do you fake something like that? How do you look someone in the eye and lie with that much warmth? But Dad didn't argue with me. He leaned back, folded his arms, and just sat there. His silence was louder than his words, and that silence stayed with me. Later that night, lying in bed, her face kept floating through my mind. I thought about how she smiled when I made her laugh. I thought about the way she would hold my hand, like she was holding on to something that kept her safe. Could someone fake that? Could someone hide a truth behind that kind of tenderness? The next day, I met her for coffee, our usual spot. A cozy little cafe tucked into a quiet corner of the city. It had mismatched chairs, chalkboard menus, and the kind of soft music that made conversations feel private. She was already there when I arrived, waiting at our favorite table by the window. She smiled when she saw me, and for a moment, everything felt the way it always did. Familiar, warm, safe. But when she reached for my hand across the table, I hesitated just a second too long. She noticed. "You're quiet," she said, brushing her fingers against mine. I gave her a small smile and shook my head. "Just tired," I said. A lie, and it tasted bitter. She watched me for a moment like she was trying to see if there was something more. "Is something wrong?" she asked. I wanted to say no. I wanted to believe that everything was fine. But something inside me was starting to shift. I said no anyway, because I wasn't ready to open that door. Not yet. Still, the doubt didn't go away. If anything, it grew. Every time she spoke, I found myself listening differently, watching more closely, not because I wanted to catch her in something, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I wasn't seeing. And then I started noticing small things, little details, like how her stories about her childhood were always vague, how she changed the subject when I asked about her family, how sometimes if I pressed a little, her answers would shift ever so slightly. Nothing big, nothing obvious, just enough to make me wonder. One night, I decided to bring it up, not what Dad said, but the feeling that had started to settle in my chest. We were sitting in her apartment, the city lights painting soft gold lines across her walls. "Can I ask you something?" I said. My voice felt quieter than usual. Maybe because I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. "Of course," she said, turning to face me. I looked at her for a long moment. "Why don't you ever talk about your family?" I asked. Her smile dropped, just for a second. If I hadn't been watching so closely, I might have missed it. She looked down at her hands. "It's not a happy story," she said quietly. "Can you tell me anyway?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just sat there, silent. I thought she might open up finally, but after a few seconds, she shook her head. "Not tonight," she said. "Please." I nodded, but inside, I felt something sink. The space between us, once so warm and full of light, now felt a little colder. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone, her name glowing on the screen. I hadn't slept. I kept thinking about what she didn't say, about the way her eyes looked when I asked about her past. Dad walked in, poured a cup of coffee, and slid it across the table. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally he asked, "Still thinking about what I said?" I looked up. I didn't want to admit it, but I nodded. "I don't want to believe you," I said. He nodded slowly. "I know, but love doesn't mean ignoring what's in front of you." "You don't even know her," I snapped. My voice was louder than I meant it to be. He didn't flinch. "I don't have to know her. I see how this is eating at you. You're not sleeping. You're questioning things you didn't used to." I looked away. He was right. That made it worse. "What if you're wrong?" I asked. He took a sip of coffee. "Then I'm wrong. And I hope I am. But if I'm not," he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Later that day, I went to see her. I didn't call. I didn't want to give her time to think. If there was a truth to find, I wanted it raw. She looked surprised when she opened the door. "Hey," she said, her voice warm, but her eyes uncertain. "Can we talk?" I asked. She stepped aside. "Of course." We sat on the couch. The silence was thick. Finally, I spoke. "I need to know the truth." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "About your past, your family, all the things you never talk about." She didn't speak right away. Her hands twisted in her lap. Her eyes dropped. I waited. "I told you," she said softly. "It's not a happy story. I know, but I'm not asking for perfect. I just want honest." She looked at me, then away. "You're right," she said finally. "There are things I haven't told you." "Why?" I asked. My voice was low. I didn't want to scare her, but I needed to understand. "Because I didn't know if you'd still love me if you knew," she said. My heart clenched. "Knew what?" She took a deep breath. Her voice shook. "My family isn't just complicated. They're dangerous. I've spent my whole life trying to get away from them." I stared at her. That wasn't what I expected. I didn't know what I expected. "They've done things," she said. "Awful things. Things I wanted no part of. That's why I left. That's why I don't talk about them." I wanted to reach for her, to say it was okay. But Dad's voice echoed in my head. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to protect you," she said. "I thought if I buried it, it couldn't touch us." Her eyes were full of tears. Her voice was full of fear. And I didn't know what to do, because part of me still believed her, still loved her. But another part, the part shaped by Dad's quiet wisdom, still wondered. Was this all of it? Or just the part she was ready to share? And maybe that was the hardest part. Not knowing if the truth had finally been told, or if I was still standing outside a door she hadn't fully opened. Dad always had this quiet power, not the kind that shouted or demanded attention, but the kind that sat across from you in silence and still managed to rearrange everything you thought you knew. He didn't speak often, not when it came to matters of the heart, but when he did, it was like a stone thrown into a still lake. The ripples came slow, but they never stopped. When he told me she wasn't being honest, it wasn't with a raised voice or furrowed brow. It was in the pause between sips of coffee, in the way he looked at me and then away, like the truth itself was too heavy to name out loud. "She's not telling you the whole story," he said, and that single sentence was enough to plant a forest of doubt. It didn't sound like suspicion. It sounded like sorrow. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew about her didn't feel so steady. I found myself caught between the comfort of love and the discomfort of maybe not knowing her at all. I defended her, of course. "You don't know her like I do," I said, trying to armor myself with certainty. But even as the words left my mouth, I felt the crack in their foundation. Because love had always felt simple with her, light and soft, like a favorite song on repeat. But doubt doesn't knock before it enters. It just slips in and sits beside you, watching. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, remembering her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she teased me, the way her fingers curled into mine like I was something safe. Could someone fake that kind of warmth? Could someone wrap their arms around you and still carry secrets they never planned to share? I didn't want to believe it. But Dad's words, it was like they stuck in my ribs. Not sharp, but constant. The next day I saw her again. Same cafe, same table by the window, same smile when she saw me. She looked like home. And yet, something in me had changed. She reached for my hand, and I hesitated just a breath too long. She noticed. Of course she did. "You're quiet," she said. "Just tired," I lied. But I wasn't tired. I was tangled. In her voice. In my father's voice. In every moment we had shared that now replayed under a different light. I didn't know if I was being unfair or finally opening my eyes.